We're fine that.
Well, they're facing elimination now, so their backs are to the wall. He has to figure it out, or else he's going home. And nobody wants to be 5th or 6th. You know, the last time I was 5th or 6th was, okay, let's not talk about that. That was depressing times for when I was in school. Okay. And I was never picked very quickly for any of my sports teams at all.
That's okay. Now you're in esports, Rainy.
Yeah, and I'm still not picked. You know, nobody picks Rainy.
I'll pick you. I'll pick you, Rainy.
Thank you for that.
Take the king elephants out of your decks, and I'll pick you.
So you're an advocate of Silverbolt? You just like Silverbolt?
I didn't mean for you to take that so personally, but sure.
No. It's always
or put
personal.
3 elephants in him. You know.
Have you seen the elephant? Do you know how many crunches the elephant can do?
Crunches? I mean, give me a break. 500,000 billion, like million? Like, are you kidding me? That guy could probably crunch all day, all night, forever.
Yeah, he just crunches. That's what he does. He crunches. And the more cards you play, the more he crunches, you know? He bounces cards back and he's like, I'm crunching. All right, Meow versus Essia. Shadow versus Dragon here to kick things off. And let's see how they do.
All right, so let's get into these opening hands. All right, so Essia definitely going to need to be throwing most of that back. Might keep the Breath of the Salamander.
Right, in this matchup especially. So, you know, this is a matchup that you and I have never really casted or had any experience talking about.
Yeah, 0 experience, yep.
I haven't seen this at all today. So, Meow does have a little bit of a strange edge here. He does have a couple of tech cards that I think are a bit more capable of dealing with the sort of list we're seeing Essia bring today. So, I mean, I guess if it really comes down to what can be a very 50-50 matchup constantly, I think Meow has the edge on this one in particular.
I think so too. I think his techs, are exactly positioned to beat Dragon, if no other deck.
As for how he actually develops this early game, I think a very important thing to watch for is whether he finds an Attendant Knight. Because if he manages to play 1-on-3, he's got the Erd waiting in hand, and the rest of his cards don't really give him that kind of synergy. There's a possibility even of going Demon Eater to search for it, and just make sure he has it next turn.
I actually really like that, mostly because if he doesn't and he just develops, say, a Belinus this turn, his turn 3 is real stinky. He'll then have to dig and then play something else. However, this does get more early damage in, but I kind of want to save that Demon Eater for a Haunted House play. Same thing with the Erd.
Makes a lot of sense. Let's go for the Belinus here and just kind of throws the Erd to say, I don't really need to play this on turn 4, and if I do, you know, never really hurt to maybe try to develop 2-drop alongside Haunted House or perhaps Skull Beast as well. He has ways about going this, but it's very hard to call it in the early game whether or not he gets that far.
Now, with the starting hand that Essia did have, I think he got rather lucky pulling the Ayala, because he did throw back his only early option in Breath of the Salamander to kind of like stave off damage, but he did find an Ayala to ramp. He did keep the Sybil, and what I do find is a lot of players who do play Dragon favor keeping Sybil if they're on the play, just because you are going to get to the 5 play points faster than your opponent, and you can get the ramp, and you always need ramp, so keeping ramp is good. But it didn't really give him a lot of options outside of that Ayala that he just drew, and it might still be too slow to really do anything about the early game that Meow has.
Indeed. Especially it's probably difficult to avoid mentioning he has like 4 10-cost cards in his hand, and he has drawn, what, 2 cards that aren't? It makes it really tough for him to kind of approach this next turn, especially. That gives him a play for sure with the Dragon Summoner, but if the most he can do these next few turns is just simply stall, then I think we might see him kind of peter out a little bit in the turns in between Sybil and developing his 10-cost cards.
Right. And I do think that there was a window to get Haunted House last turn out before he did play the Demon Eater, but it looks like he just wanted to develop more of a board with the Skull Beast, which is absolutely fine. He does have another Soul Conversion to activate, another Erd to activate, and he has a Bone Chimera in hand now. If that Bone Chimera doesn't get dealt with, that can be just as effective as an Erd target as a Tentative Knight. So, especially against Dragon, because it basically just sets up for a board that's really hard to deal with, that can help with Ektar and all those other things. So I think Meow has all the cards he needs. Essia does not. Essia still is waiting a little bit to see if he can get into some more board clears or some earlier plays.
Yeah. At the moment, Essia has all the cards he air quotes needs to win a game, but how he actually gets there is heavily contested at the moment. I think something kind of worth mentioning that I always look out for now that players, and he does find it right there, because I've seen like every single Shadow list effectively running Tyrant today, I'm thinking it adds another dimension to evaluating opening hands like this, because whereas Meow has like, he's drawn 3 copies of the effect of sacrificing one of his followers to draw 2, he has drawn a lot of sources of Shadows like Skull Beast and continues with Chimera, even Erd as well, means that this Tyrant actually has a pretty solid chance of being active around perhaps Meow's own turn 8 forward, perhaps, if he continues to draw things that he can throw out. And I think that is a huge difference, because even if Essia finds ways to heal, he is taking poke every single turn, and Haunted House is establishing that even further.
Both games we've seen it in this Dragon matchup in particular, it's just gotten those extra few points of damage in, and again, that's all you need sometimes. And it's just a really hard threat to deal with. Like, it's an unassuming threat, but it gains so much value when you do draw the cards, like you said, in Demon Eater and Soul Conversion. It just gives you those extra things to do while you're drawing your card.
On the other hand here, Essia does enter Overflow, but he is still 2 turns away from being able to make any kind of significant comeback into any advantages Meow develops. So his turn 8 and 9 are, I think, pretty dependent on what he manages to draw.
Now, here's an interesting thought that I have, is when we looked at Meow's Shadow deck, we only saw 1 Soul Squasher in it. So in my mind, that means he really is leaning on Deathly Tyrant into the endgame and not really worried too much about his mid-game potential. And I think that's maybe where Haunted House comes into play. Maybe it just helps him a little bit there. It's like in place of one of the Soul Squashers. But how do you feel about that? It's the only deck we've seen out of any of our players to run any copies less than 3 Soul Squashers in their deck.
I feel like we saw one list that ran 2, but it's interesting to me because it's the first time we've seen that sort of like reaction to the fact that the card has been nerfed. It has been core in Shadow since it has been printed, just because it offers, or it fills a gap that Shadow previously kind of didn't have. It's a solid turn 2 play that also has this strong tempo comeback in the mid game, whereas like compare that to like trying to go for a Necro Assassin turn or something like that. But now that it has only 1 defense, I think that's a super massive change. It's not a good turn 2 into a lot of enemy boards anymore. Even just playing something like a Goblin trades into it. I think Meow identified that and kind of sort of made the decision of, instead I'm just going to play maybe a copy of Haunted House in the early game and just run my playset of Belenesses to try to have that sort of kind of removal utility on a 2-drop. And perhaps probably long before even just bringing the deck here, tested out what it felt like to only have 1 Soul Squasher and liked it. It's very, very strange and very new for Shadow as a class for sure. But I mean, it seems to be working out just fine.
That's right. And let's talk about the simple fact that Essia did draw an Oracle off of that Pure-Hearted Singer, which was very crucial. Of course, having all of these 10 drops in the hand, even 1 extra turn of not being able to play them could have spelt, a dire situation. But now that he's managed to get himself up to 10 in a relevant time frame, I think that he is now on top of this game. He's got 3 Bahamut's already in hand with a Zeus, with a Genesis Dragon, literally has everything he needs. So this is on Meow to see if he can put together a lethal before these Bahamuts start coming down.
I mostly agree. I think that one huge thing that we're definitely watching for here is that Tyrant is still building up, and now with the established Chimera on board and it is Meow's turn, he can choose to, well, it didn't choose to Erd it or anything for that, but he has a lot of ways in hand to amass more Shadows. It could definitely be something he genuinely develops within these like next few turns, and that would be enough to win the game against a Bahamut that was forced up by any kind of board he develops before then. That I think is actually perhaps one of the strongest possible ways of finishing the game that Meow could be developing here. I don't think the Ictor series is going to be good enough to deal with the onslaught of triple Bahamut.
Wholeheartedly agree. And we saw Meow make a very heads-up play. Now, I know a lot of you guys might not be familiar with Haunted House, but it can fill up your board. We saw Meow actually dig into the Ayala so that he could have board space for later plays this turn. Very smart. Very good use of his play points and his board space this turn.
And with all that drawing, finding him the Lurching Corpse, he completely hedged a bet against Bahamut here, and I think that It was very deliberate and very, very rewarded for how it limits Essia's lines of play.
Here we go. Here we go. This is the true test. Is there any world where Queen of the Dread Sea is the play with this particular hand?
Absolutely not. There's a lurching corpse right there. I like what Onion Chief did, but this is, if there was ever a time to not go for Queen of the Dread Sea, it is now.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, especially with an Evo point left, yeah, you can't do it. Not with the lurching corpse. Not possible.
He wanted to do a ton of damage. I mean, he could just go for Genesis Dragon Zeus, but discard 3 Bahamut's? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
So
yeah, Zeus seems like not the greatest play here. Honestly, I like the Genesis Dragon plays. I don't know why people don't play the Genesis Dragons out. Honestly, especially after looking at the lists and knowing that my opponent only has access to 1 Soul Squasher, like there's things that you can chance. You don't even have to Evo it necessarily. It's just a big threat that your opponent has to deal with. And then you can start jamming down your Bahamut's.
All right,
but it looks like a lot of our players just keep it for lethal.
Yeah, perhaps the main thing Essia was thinking about not jamming it there is just the other Dragoncraft cards in his hand being Scythe there, and I guess that is pretty good. But losing the Genesis Dragon as the in-class card option for Dread Sea may have seemed very unappealing to him.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So yeah, now I can't imagine Bahamut's not the play here. I think maybe he's actually considering doing a Queen of the Dread Sea Bahamut play here.
He loses if he Bahamut's, actually. I just want to point this out.
That's true. That's true. If he does, that's 20 Shadows, Deathly Tyrant already there. Like you said, actually perfect on Mofu. You know what, Mofu? I'll shake your hand right now. Turn 8, exactly on the dot.
Yeah, I had to hold a magnifying glass to the screen to be able to spot this lethal. But it's cool because the way Meow has been playing this game has been very particular. He has been looking for very specific options to deny certain plays from Essia, and this is the ultimate sort of conclusion, like the curtain call he's led up to by doing that. This zombie party has set up Tyrant, so you can never touch Bahamut. With that said, does that mean Essia has to go Zeus? In which case, does he play it alongside Dread Sea and then throw away Bahamut?
This is Queen, Bahamut, Genesis Dragon. No, can't do that because that's losing. Okay, so this is Queen, Zeus, Genesis Dragon. Yeah, okay. So Essia takes the gamble. Meow set this game up perfectly. Played it, I think, almost to the fact that he knew that Deathly Tyrant was going to be his win condition. And like you said, on turn 8, makes it a reality.
Yeah, I mean, that game looked surgical to me in terms of how precisely Meow navigated around all of Essia's options.
Basically just said, what? I don't care if you get to 10. I'm just going to keep building up my shadows. I've done enough poke damage to this point. You're going to have to do something crazy to beat me.
And it is saying a lot when Shadow can sort of maneuver that game without using any Soul Squashers, which I think redeems relevance into us talking about how he only plays 1, as well as holding 2 Ictors with the idea in mind he's never going to play 1, or play such that he will never have to play 1. Really, really brilliant stuff from Meow today.
It's actually awesome, and it's really cool to highlight such a different type of Shadow deck too. Like we see most of our players today just bringing de facto, like, you know, meta Shadow, but Meow, what you can turn Shadow into in this anti-control version, where most of the time Ramp Dragon feels like it's really good against Shadow. Against this version of Shadow, feels not so good.
Yeah, he has made the matchup feel completely different with just the select choices of a couple of different cards. That said, whereas we are now commenting upon Meow's creativeness and his ability to sort of maneuver that kind of deck building, this is the real test for him, I think.
Yes.
We've established his Shadow list works. In fact, it works incredibly, and that last game definitely proved it. Now, does King Elephant work? That is something that I really want to see it happen, but it's something that I have much less faith in.
This is a similar situation I've seen Meow put himself into even in the round robin weeks. Well, he'll have like 2 awesome decks that perform really well for him all day, but he'll have one deck that he made, maybe a pet deck of his, that he really just wants to win with. That's kind of his Achilles heel, right? It's the one thing that can bring him down. In a tournament with such high stakes as today being the finals, bringing a deck like this might be a misstep, but like you said, he still has a time to prove it. So
Right. Very least, I think you pointed this out earlier, but I think this is probably the tougher matchup for him to maneuver with, especially the type of deck that he's built this to be. As you said, when it comes to the mirror, there is no edge, I think, that White Wolf offers this deck. Just because the development of the combo itself is very difficult to stop.
Right. That's the biggest thing. Plus, just like we've talked about in the previous game where we saw Meow actually just draw a bunch of his expensive cards, right? Like, this is a deck that you can literally just feel like Dragon without ramp. You have a 10-drop, you have an 8-drop, you have a 9-drop, you have all these 6-drops, and you just can't do anything for a long period of time.
At the very least, he's avoided drawing any number of Cassiopeias in his top 5, but I'm pretty sure all 3 of them are in the next 5 cards. That's just kind of how this list has functioned so far.
Now, Meow hasn't, or I don't want to cast or curse him, I don't really want to say it, but he hasn't drawn King Elephant yet.
That is true.
Yeah. Now, sorry, Meow, if your next card is King Elephant, I will assume all of the blame, okay? But
there's 3 Cassiopeias in there, so they could be anywhere from like the next card to like the 4th card after it, but that still would be a schedule where it would come ahead of time on the White Wolf.
Yes. All right, so let's talk about what Essia's game plan is here. So he has Goblin Mage to search for his first Roach. He's got an Elven Princess Mage. He's on the draw, which is exactly what you want to be with Forest. I think Forest is actually a deck that you want to be on the draw with more often than not because of how the combo works. And I think he's in a good position here. He doesn't have a bounce, he doesn't have a second Roach yet, but he has all the other tools he needs, and he has some defensive options in Aaron and Sylvan Justice. So I think he's slightly ahead right now because Meow has none of those things. And that's really it at this point. I think Essia is just slightly favored because he has more of the combo pieces.
It is possible because, I mean, every time I feel like I'm certain that a Forest player who's in this situation where he just has complete command of the board due to Wood of Brambles, I'm convinced that they've won because they get every single trade that they want, and then I see the other player just come back with the combo first. This is probably attributable to the fact that it's actually kind of fortunate that Meow was playing the White Wolf because this hand would go absolutely nowhere if this was just Roach Forest. Meanwhile, Essia has everywhere to go at the moment. In fact, even getting Tina here, he can just evolve every turn, and I don't think the poke here really matters because Meow's win condition is going to take so much longer to develop.
Right. The aggro game plan doesn't excel in early Roach combo. It can, but because of all these outside cards and White Wolf and things like that, it just makes it, like you said, a lot slower.
I think the Wood of Brambles is a very interesting thing to develop here because Essia is playing very heavily around the poke. I mean, he doesn't know that Meow isn't really developing the Roach combo right now, but well, I take that back. I thought for a second Meow's Wood of Brambles was staying on the board because I always think through my trauma to play around it, but as it left, it did create a very stable board for Essia.
And now Meow is kind of all in on this aggro plan, it looks like. He's gotten rid of all of his hand economy. He's going all into the board. But as we see, Essia doesn't really have a board clear in his hand. He has not drawn a Cassiopeia.
Wood of Brambles helps just the slightest bit, but I don't think he can really play around all this damage anymore. If he doesn't start to develop his Roach combo, then with that being his only win condition, it does make it very tough. I think the best he can do... Well, I shouldn't speak too soon. There is always the possibility he commits another evolution point into a fairy to clear and uses Sylvan Justice, but the 3/3 is a problem. So it is a very complex sort of puzzle for Essia to solve here on how much damage he's willing to take.
I think with the amount of cards in hand, I think the play is Fina, I was going to say that, so that you can get the Goblin Mage charge so that you have a chance to combo. He doesn't have any bounce yet, but he has a chance to combo now, especially with the Fairy Circle in hand. He does have Dance of Death and Aaron to kind of play a little bit of defense. Okay, so he's actually going to tempo play the Goblin Mage. Okay. That I did not expect.
Ultimately, I suppose Essia is just willing to kind of take the slow approach because he knows his combo pieces are already here. He has one last Evo point, which I'm sure he is like drooling to put on that Elven Princess Mage, but unfortunately, with how much damage he's already taken, I think Essia is being pressured very hard into trying to develop Aaron as soon as possible. It's tough, though. I think Essia is not in a perfect spot by any means.
He's not. Meow, while not doing what Forest does best, and he's just playing an aggro game plan with, not being an aggro deck, it did position Essia to not actually be able to push his combo cards into play early. So the Evo points, like you said, not being used for the Elven Princess Mage. Now he plays Cassiopeia, does not get the favorable
he
damage
rolled
that he wanted to get. Yeah, he will roll on that one. But I think you're absolutely correct. I don't think that Essia is really pressured to play anything fast now, because when you're playing this Force matchup and you notice that your opponent only has 3 cards left in their hand, you're like, they're playing a White Wolf deck. There's nothing they can really do to me with 3 cards in their hand that's going to kill me or threaten lethal. So I'm not really afraid anymore.
Mm-hmm. The most unfortunate possible hand that Meow could be hiding right now behind 3 cards is like, what, Roach and 2 Nature's Guidances, perhaps. And the next few cards of his deck have to be pretty perfect.
That being said, this damage is real. This damage is not fake. Okay, this is going straight to Essia's face right now.
Right. I don't know. I stand by what I said. I think he has to go Aaron this turn. I think it's too dangerous to go otherwise, and he could commit a Roach, actually. It's tough to call.
I don't think he can afford to actually put in a Roach right now, simply because Meow's still at 20. If you give out one of these Roaches, you're almost assuredly giving up a faster victory by many turns.
This is exactly what I didn't want.
That is true. So 2 trades, I think that's an Aaron. Right.
Full defense here. And this is the turn right before a White Wolf can come out. So Cassiopeia can come down and deal 3 damage, and then the Airbound Barrage will pick it back up to finish off the Aaron, which I think is really the only play.
Which is interesting, but not really what he needs here as well. I think he's going to go with what you said. Airbound Barrage with Cassiopeia and just hedge it all on this White Wolf. Because, as we had been kind of discussing the card before, the Roach does get the slightest bit of synergy, and I think it could be just enough synergy with King Elephant to make something happen here. I'm not sure. 0 cost King Elephant, Roach, 1 damage, thrown face, bounce. Then he would have 5 cards in hand into Roach for 3. 1, 5, 3. Oh my. Well, he would have to get the wolf out, but I'm sweating here. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, unfortunately, White Wolf has nothing to like break into, so it's still going to be a turn before that actually becomes active.
Right, but I don't see how Essia actually develops this Roach TK yet. Well, okay, Cherry Circle, Nature's Guidance, double Roach. That is something, but he needs, I think, 19 damage is... Okay, what are the 3 ticks of damage I'm thinking in my head that inflict 19?
Well, he can dance and attack this turn. Okay, he can dance, attack, and set up a lethal for next turn, but that's assuming that Meow does not win off of that play. So, and if King Elephant is the play, King Elephant, I don't think can actually just straight up win. Or maybe it can with the Wood of Brambles.
Yeah, the Wood of Brambles activates it for sure. What I was thinking of is Wolf dies, he draws 2 cards, so that's 5 in hand. King Elephant is, what, a 1/1 at base, and then gains +1/+1 for each card in hand. So even without Wood of Brambles, he roaches and sends 1 damage face. King Elephant's 4 cards in hand. King Elephant swings for 5, and then he has 3 for the 3rd card played on the roach, and that's 9 damage.
That is 9 damage, that's right.
And you have to kill the wolf because, well, that's 4 damage.
Well, that's you don't, though, because if you do, you're dead. If you don't, that's only 4 damage.
Yeah, I think this is the strongest wolf we've seen today, actually. This is the position where the wolf has pinned Essia to a corner.
And I think Essia knows that. I think he's just going to go in with one of these roaches. He's going to set up his lethal for next turn.
Ooh. Well, I don't know if the Ancient Elf would have made a solid difference there, but makes definitely the correct call on not killing the wolf. I feel like not killing the wolf must have been the most terrifying decision he could have made.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But then you've got to think, right? Only 4 cards in hand. If he doesn't have another bounce spell, 3 cards plus a roach isn't lethal. So, got to take the chance rather than giving him the King Elephant here.
The Wood of Brambles makes it so close, but he does not, in fact, have it. I mean, I just completely assumed there's no way that you don't kill it, but Essia navigated that perfectly, I think. This is the line of play that has a chance to win him the game, and I think he's actually going to get it off.
Now, let's see. Now, if Meow plays pure defense here, and if he goes like White Wolf into the Goblin Mage, 17 damage from hand, I believe, is possible, right? We've got the Fairy Circle plus Triple Roach. We don't need Bounce anymore because we've got all 3 Roaches in hand already. So that's 6 play points plus 3 other cards. Yeah. 1, 2. Well, you can't even play the extra fairies. Never mind. So you can play 2. If Meow doesn't give Essia a target to remove this fairy, that's not going to open up enough board space. But the Ancient Elf's there to protect for another turn.
Indeed. What I'm thinking now is actually, I had been calling this Roach Lethal earlier, but I just remembered, yeah, he did throw away that Nature's Guidance. Oh, Pixie Mischief. Does that change this that much? He doesn't have 0 cost cards, but...
Not this turn, no.
Alright. No.
So if he runs the fairy in and he plays Fairy Circle, Fairy, Fairy, that's 3 of his play points. That's all you can do before the Triple Roach. That's 1, 2,
He's
3
one
spells.
play point
That's
off,
4,
right?
5, 6. Yeah, he's 1 play point off from winning this turn.
Because that would be the 4, 6, 7 that he needs for the 17. If that was a Nature's Guidance, that would be it. But there's the setup. I mean, Ancient Elf, now with the developed hand that Meow has, I need to recalculate my Roach, my King Elephant here, real quick. So Wood of Brambles is bounced back to hand, and this Roach doesn't do any damage to begin with. The Roach actually doesn't do any damage this turn, in fact. Wait, the Cassiopeia does actually enable the Roach. He can Roach now, Elephant, Roach.
Yep.
The Master.
Wow. Is this gonna win right now? Is King Elephant
That's it.
gonna win a game?
He found it. I'm beside myself. I can't believe this.
I don't know what to say. I think Rainey dropped dead on the floor after watching that one. Meow taking a victory with King Elephant. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say here. I'm lost.
We've made it.
King Elephant.
We've made it, my friends. It's been a long and difficult journey, but King Elephant has gotten the recognition he deserves. At the end of the Starforged Legends expansion, King Elephant wins a tournament.